Hello, this is a New Year coffee video. New Year because today is January 2nd, and this is a small coffee plantation in a very narrow valley on island Chichijima. Chichijima belongs to Ogasawara archipelago. This is a remote ocean island, geographically closer to northern Micronesia, politically belongs to Japan. And here on Chichijima, there are few coffee plantations which actually making some local coffees. So this is a coffee tree. All of them around me, and you can see easily how does it look botanically. So I am botanist, so I will speak about mostly about botany of the coffee. So first of all, this is not a natural height. So a coffee tree exhibits so-called Roux model of growth. Architectural model is kind of, well, the overall structure of the plant. So normally in coffee, there are two kinds of shoots. So this is a horizontal shoots, plagiotropic. Only these shoots will flower. And in the center, you can see the main trunk. So the main trunk is formed by only one single orthotropic shoot. So coffee is a very regular plant. It will produce almost exact amount of nodes, leaves, and amount of growth is very uniform. So kind of very strictly organized plant. And this is good enough, but not good at all for people who want to pick coffee. Because as plant of mostly tropical regions, it doesn't really want to fruits to ripe together. So as you see here, it's easy to see that sometimes fruits are green, but there are some reddish fruits all around. So if you have a coffee plantation, you should, like for best coffee, of course, you should manually pick up the ripe coffee fruits, like maybe every day. So this is a bit complicated. Sometimes, of course, people just wait until most of fruits and branches are ripe and then collect them all together. I mean, green, overripe, ripe, everything together. Of course, this will reduce the quality of coffee. So the best is a manual picking. But the coffee is growing, and these plagiotropic branches will flower, make fruits, but every node flower only once. So that branch will soon degrade and go out. And this orthotropic stem will go up, up, and produce new plagiotropic branches, which is normal. But sooner or later, the picking, manually picking, will be very complicated. So ladders will not save. So this is unfortunately the problem. And how to, well, avoid it, how the remedy is so-called juvenilization. So juvenilization is simply like it's done here, the cutting the top of the plant, and then plant will produce more lateral plagiotropic branches. So this is very easy to see here. The second thing, which is a bit unfortunate, but also seen here quite well. So sometimes some leaves have some brown margins. So brown margins of leaves is very general plant response almost to anything. So very hard to understand what this plant is telling us about. But here I think it tells us about just one thing, the wind. So coffee originated from mountainous altitudes about 1,000 meters above the sea level in tropical Ethiopia. At least coffee arabica, which is definitely cultivated here, the most broadly cultivated plant, especially in the colder regions. So these altitudes, about 1,000 meters, are relatively cool. Temperatures going like about 18-20 centigrades, which is absolutely perfect for Chichijima. But there's one unfortunate thing. Remote ocean islands are typically windy, especially these islands which stay kind of on the border between tropical and, well, much colder masses of air which frequently goes from Arctic. So wind is normal here, and coffee doesn't like wind. It is cultivated very properly here. As you see here, it is a valley, very narrow valley. So winds are here not very frequently, but they are, unfortunately. And this is the reason why sometimes leaves have brownish margins. However, if it decreases production, but only slightly. So without like the actual appearance is not so good, but production I think is good enough. Okay, so this is a coffee, how it grows, and what is the life form of the tree. Actually, coffee is member of Rubiaceae family, coffee family. So it has fleshy fruits like most of Rubiaceae, and fruits are not berries, but drupes. So drupes of several layers of pericarp, of which the external layer, typically dark red when it's ripe, it will be edible. So it's edible, and it's edible by birds. And I can see here that some birds around me probably waiting until I will finish my video and will try to eat more of it. So birds will eat ripe red part of coffee fruits, whereas they don't typically touch seeds, which we call beans. So there are two seeds in a stone, and these seeds we use for making coffee. Coffee, as I said, belongs to Rubiaceae, the coffee family, and as typical representative of Rubiaceae family, it has all characters of that group. For example, it has fleshy fruits originated from inferior ovary. So if you look on a fruit sideways, you will see on the top some remains of perianth, or at least place where perianth was attached. Plus, it has very famous, because it's very good character for distinguishing family, intrapetiolar stipules. Kind of stipules are on the both sides of the leaf, but they are connected, fused together with stipules of opposite leaves, because coffee has opposite leaf arrangement. Now, this is a coffee arabica, Ethiopian plant. Low altitude here, about like 100 meters above the sea level, but high altitude in a native Ethiopia, which is much more tropical than Chichijima, so it's understandable. So very interestingly is like a origin of coffee. First of all, coffee genus is just a unique genus from a whole giant Rubiaceae family, which is so rich of caffeine. Actually, caffeine is everywhere. Caffeine is in bark, caffeine is in leaves, caffeine is in fruits, but concentration of caffeine in fruits is about like 5 times bigger than in leaves. That's why we use fruits, of course. And first species which went into cultivation, probably in Yemen, in the very ancient medieval times, was this coffee arabica, and by interesting, well, kind of coincidence, this is an allotetraploid. So many plants in cultivation are polyploids, which means like a increasing number of chromosomes. And this species is allotetraploid, which means it has 4 numbers of chromosome, or double numbers from different parental species. So 2 different species of coffee probably participated in originating this one. Most likely, there are 1 species from Eastern Africa and 2nd species from Western Africa, from Cameroon. So the cultivated coffee arabica has genomes of both high altitude, drought-tolerant plants from like mountains of East Africa, and low level, very tropical, like plants which love the wet climate of Western Africa. This is interesting origin. So coffee has traces of both. It can be cultivated, well, if you don't, well, put it in a windy place. So coffee doesn't like 2 things, actually. It doesn't like wind, and doesn't like kind of rapid changes of anything. Rapid changes of sun level, of temperature. Well, actually, most tropical plants don't like it. It's understandable. Their growing conditions are very far from like rapidly changing. And if we go back to coffee, like to Coffea genus, it contains more than 100 species, but only 2 groups of that genus are relatively rich of coffee. And there are several Madagascan species from Madagascar, which, as far as I know, were never been used as a source of drink. And there's a big East African clade, which consists of probably like 20 species altogether, including this allotetraploid Coffea arabica. They are rich of caffeine. Why is it? It's still an open question. What is caffeine? Caffeine is working with our brain in a very interesting way. For example, it's kind of postpone our kind of sleep feeling, so we don't feel very sleepy. Everybody understand that, right? It also stimulates the dopamine production in the brain, so it's a pleasant drink. So altogether, it makes a very common effect. If you drink coffee, you understand it very well. So But why plant does need the caffeine? So actually there was kind of evolutionary picture of the genus Coffea, and we think that ancestrally Coffea genus was caffeine less. So it has no caffeine or very small amounts of caffeine, almost indistinguishable chemically. But then at some point, actually on 2 points, the single mutation switched the synthesis of caffeine. Why it was still an open question, but theories exist that first of all, the amount of caffeine in leaves will be natural insecticide. And some experiments like with insects show this is probably correct. So it will kill insects. So we actually are drinking insecticide. Okay, well, and for pollinators, for bees, typically honeybees or bees in native range, will try to visit flowers of coffee for interesting reasons. Like it will sharpen the memory of bees, so they will remember flowers better. So their behavior will be less random. And this is interesting. So the biggest danger of pollination is what? When pollinator is kind of non-selective, it will visit all flowers at random. It's okay for plants because pollen grains will not germinate on kind of alien species. But unfortunately, when pollinator is like covered with multiple alien pollen, the effectiveness of pollination of particular species is low. So if bee remembers which flowers it visited, it will start to visit next similar flower, so probability of within species pollination is much larger. So this is very, very, very interesting. So probably one of reasons why this caffeine has similar effects on mammals as well. So kind of it also increases our ability to memorize stuff, for example. So this is the theory, and probably initial development of caffeine was related with insecticide idea, and then like a higher concentration of caffeine, especially in flowers and then in fruits, are related with increasing of pollination, like increasing of this memory ability of bees to visit next flower of the same species. And related with all of that is a human consumption. There are lots of literature about it. I will only speak about some aspects. First of all, as I said, leaves are, well, caffeinated as well. So you can make a tea-like drink from leaves. Actually, I made this experiment once. I made a coffee-like drinks from tea seeds and a tea-like drink from coffee leaves. And to me, like a tea from these leaves is kind of weak. So not very interesting. But that drink was popular in Africa and also still, at least I read about it in Indonesia. So this is possible to make a drink. Then people actually probably made a fermented drink out of the fruits because fruits are edible. They're sweet. Actually, this is one of things which probably birds will kind of drop it to the ground. So it's a bit skinny, but a bit soapy, but sweet. And I would say not a bad in taste. Nice. And also rich of caffeine, by the way. So fermented drink of these red fruits was available in Eastern Africa from very long time. And then Arabian people discovered that probably the best way is to fry the seeds until some temperature and then chew it. The next step was a drink which we use as a coffee. So this is a short history of coffee uses. And again, this is a New Year coffee video, and you see how coffee is growing and some interesting things about coffee cultivation, origin, botanical history, and even coffee consumption. Happy New Year. Thank you.